Welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman.
Here I am in Mexico.
Wait 1 second, Ed. And don't forget the show's brought to you by Audible.com. Go to audible.com/Opperman Report, and you can sign up for a free audiobook. Now, we're here tonight with our guest. He was brought to us by our sponsors, the New World Mexican Women, because he's related to a friend of one of Maria, who is our contact down there with the sponsor. And he's from Mexico, and his name is Celestino Mota. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, that's very good, Ed.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, thank you, sir. So we have Celestino Mota. So, Celestino, tell us about yourself and a little bit of background, and then give us an idea of what's going on down there with all this, with these kidnappings and these mass graves and the arrests and the police chief on the run and all this stuff.
Well, yes, it's been a big story. We're from a provincial area in rural Mexico and never been in the New York Times before that I can remember. These were some events that took place about a month ago, where a group of students were kidnapped, and as a result of that, the mayor of the town, or the municipal president, and his wife, they became fugitives almost immediately. And then as the political situation developed, both in Guerrero and nationally, eventually the governor of Guerrero, Angél Aguirre, was deposed. And this was last week, and they put in a new governor for the state. And the person that they chose was from the universities, has a background that's like the students. So apparently they're trying to appease all the people that are criticizing the government for the fact that these students have been all disappeared, and they started right away the first day digging up all the around Iguala. The very first day it was like start digging up looking for them in these graves. And of course they found plenty of these bodies out there, because we've been going through these heavy duty narco wars for since about 2010 or so.
Okay.
When they had a lot of gang warfare here. And so of course when they're having that, they have to put those bodies out there. So it's no surprise to anybody that if you go get some criminals and arrest them, and then they'll take you to some graveyards. So they go. So
well,
that's
let me
the way.
Let me ask a question.
Yes, go ahead.
The students went missing. They were kidnapped. Now, what caused them to start? What was the nexus that they started digging up these graves and looking for these graves?
The next day they started. That was a news story.
Okay.
And there was this fellow from Vice News. He was down, and that was the story he wrote. Everybody wrote the same story like they do in the mass media. And was all about, he was saying, oh, well, out there, the smell of death, and they go out towards and they're digging them out, and there's another one. And anyway, I knew that, that they weren't going to find them out there. They were just buying time or something. But at the time, the whole story struck me as exceedingly strange, because I was thinking about those Nigerian schoolgirls. And I was saying, what's the deal now? These Nigerian schoolgirls, they go missing, and they're missing, and they keep looking for them and looking for them and looking for them, and they can't ever find them. It's like they're going to always be looking for them. So then I thought, well, that was like that plane from Malaysia that it went down, and they just kept looking for it and looking for it. And I was thinking, this thing about these losing a large number of students is a sure way to get people to the media to have something that would be continuous. Well, it struck me that suspicious or something. I said, oh my God, it must be the false flag South or something. And I thought that theory for quite some time, because it seemed so strange that they had abducted them. A large number of people like that. It was unusual. Like, it was designed to be a media event.
No, down there on the news down there, this was like 24-hour news. Do you have like CNN 24-hour news down there?
No, I'm not referring to CNN 24-hour news. I'm referring now to New York Times, LA Times, Vice News, CNN, all the majors covered this. Now, you haven't seen it. You're not there's a lot of news, okay?
Yeah.
But these made the New York Times has definitely written opinion pieces and all about this. So when all these big, important newspapers are paying attention to it, that's what I'm referring to of its notoriety.
Gotcha.
You see, maybe you missed all those stories, but maybe some of your listeners have seen these stories about Guerrero because they're still going on, where you see them reported in the big mass media periodicals.
Okay, so then at first you had a theory.
Yeah, my theory was that it seemed too cockeyed that all the people would be disappearing all over the world. The girls in Nigeria, the plane in Malaysia. I remember in Israel, some students disappeared right before the war with Hamas, and they were looking for them for a real long time over there. And I thought, this has got to be unreal, because how could everybody be getting lost? The people always used to get lost. I was asking myself, and I was thinking, that can't be real. And then the media's in it. The next day, the media's writing these stories about them looking for bodies where they're not going to find them over there. They're going to find plenty of bodies, yes, but they're going to be these dead criminals that were victims of this crime war that we've been having down here, not these students that they just abducted.
Do the cops down there, do they have the kind of technology, the capabilities to do autopsies on the bodies they're digging up and see if
they presumably, yes, and then they came out and reported in a few days that, no, that wasn't their bodies. Okay. That was the main slant that the news reported. And then they had the other main slant is that the Mexican people are like having these protest marches, that they compare them with the protest marches in Hong Kong. Like, like they were trying to get some Mexican Spring thing going.
Right.
But anyway, that was my theory at the time. Now I don't believe that, and that's what I think is most interesting, is that I convinced myself through evidence that I'll present here to you and your listeners. The evidence that I came across, for what it's worth, that convinced me, for what that's worth, that this was no synthetic event. This was so organic. This was organic Guerrero, and this could happen in Guerrero. Apparently it did happen in Guerrero. And then at the CIA or whatever's his name, John McCain, his friends and stuff, if they're involved in this, well, they get in on the next day and they tell the newspapers how they want to run with this, try to do some destabilization.
Well, did John McCain actually show his face down there?
No.
Okay.
I was just using that as a figure of speech,
I got
my friend.
Sure.
Just a figure of speech, because he knows different terrorist people. You know what I mean? I'm just an example of
it seems like
they have a nexus with
he knows every
people who all know each other.
He knows every gang up there in the Middle East. All these Malaysians.
Yeah, well, it's just a figure of speech. It was just a figure of speech. Yeah. I didn't mean to slant. I could have said some other name. I'm sorry.
Now, one more question for you, real quick. Now, because now you're saying that the police down there do have the capabilities to dig up these bodies, do autopsies, and see what's going on. But do you have any faith or confidence in what they would report in their reports and what would come out in the news?
Well, we don't know this about the news. I mean, I don't know the news. I don't know how that works. But the question is that those bodies are not the bodies of the students.
Okay.
No, I'm saying they just went to somewhere they knew there was going to be some bodies. Or what they did is they arrested 48 criminals right away, okay? And when they started hitting them with boards, okay, down at the jail, and they told them where all those bodies were, okay, because that's just the way it is. And it's not the first time they found dead bodies around here. They had a big scandal. Well, you don't know the news. You don't know about Mexico, right? But about 2-3 years ago, when the trouble started here in Tasco, they discovered some bodies in a mine shaft, and they made it into a big story, and the L.A. Times covered it, and they sent a lot of people down here. And it was right after they did that this was about 2 years where there was a lot of massacres and a lot of assassinations, and kidnappings, beheadings, and real flamboyant type of narco activity that we're unfamiliar with. The people around here never acted like that. But it started about when they discovered those remains back in the Tosco mines.
How many
Somebody
did they find?
research it. It was in 2009, I think.
And how many bodies did they find?
They said they found about like 30, I think, or 40 or something. But see, these are mine shafts where we know where those mines. There's other ones, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because they've been there for a long time. Guerrero's a wild state. They have to put those bodies someplace. So it's not a surprise that they would find one of the. It's just a surprise is why all of a sudden now the LA Times is writing about it. That's the only thing that's surprising.
Let me ask you about Guerrero, okay? Now, is this a town where there's a lot of a lot of narco trafficking, right? Where the average person's involved as well, or is it just tightly controlled by these gangs?
Oh, well, that's a good question, Evan. I'm really glad that you asked that question. It's very pertinent. Okay, Guerrero is a state. I think it's the number poorest state in Mexico, in the south and southwest part of Mexico by Oaxaca. And Guerrero is traditionally a very wild place, like the Old West, and used to be that there was a lot of killings, and people knew that Guerrero means warrior, and that people here were very violent, but it was about women and land or insults or drinking and stuff like that. But when this narco criminal violence started, it wasn't like the people went over and started dealing with drugs. No. It's like the people stopped being homicidal because it was like in bad taste, you know. Once these homicides are going around, the people themselves absolutely stopped committing any of these violent crimes that they used to do. They were famous for them, and I'm not exaggerating, okay? And they just stopped doing them because there's no homicides anymore. There hasn't been for years, and I know the people. I'm talking about all the common people.
Sure.
This narco violence in Mexico is not coming out of the society. It's not coming out of the Mexican society because nobody here knows anybody that's involved in any of that stuff. Nobody ever knew anybody. When the police drive around, they go in, you know, these big trucks. There's 10 or 20 of them in there or something. They don't look at the people on the street because they know there's nobody on the street they're looking for. So you can see them, these police, they're not like, you know, looking like, where's these criminals? They know they're not there. They're like phantoms, these narco guys. That They somehow they can just disappear or something.
And what kind of drugs are they moving through there? Marijuana, coke, meth?
No drugs at all, because this is the irony. We're not really. They made a thing years ago where people in the United States think that somehow we're on a road from Colombia to the United States. But, you know, we're not on the road. These guys wouldn't want to have to fight every centimeter of the road between Colombia and the United States just to get the drugs up here. They would get it through containers or do anything else. There's nothing to fight over that's worth it, that warrants all this. This is its own thing in some way because the society is not giving it over to these types of drugs. They're fighting over them, and they're supposedly it's some drug profits. But why don't they just split the profits and put it in a container and ship it up to the United States to some port where they are in with the port directors? In other words, it doesn't make sense to schlep it all the way across the mountains of Guerrero just to try to get it up to the Arizona border. It's just not cost efficient. And to have all this drama associated with it, there's no way that this has to do with real, you know, what you're saying, narco traffic. It's just not. You just don't. It's not like. Yes, it's true that Guerrero has always had cultivation of poppy and marijuana in the hinterlands, and there's plenty of hinterlands, especially around Tlacotepec. As far back as I can remember, those areas were. But you're not talking like Afghanistan,
right?
You know what I mean? You're not talking about something where you got like massive cultivation.
Okay, but
it's not big enough.
From my own experience, right? I know that back in the 80s, the early 80s, like down in Tucson, you know, you could get marijuana and coke and stuff like that coming up from Mexico. You can get really good deals in that area, okay? But then 1 year, suddenly all these Colombian guys showed up out of nowhere. It was like it happened in 1 year. And all the bars and all the clubs and everything was filled with these Colombian guys who suddenly were definitely running things, okay? It was around 1985, 87, around that time, okay? Now there's some kind of connection now with the Colombians and that Colombian drugs coming through Mexico, no?
We never see Colombians. I've never seen a Colombian. I think that the Colombians took it, they started shipping it direct, and I think the drugs that go in the United States go in more directly,
Yeah.
They go in through commercial channels and, whatever. There's no reason to drive them overland into a rural area, mountainous area like Guerrero. You see what I mean? Just saying it's on its way up there or something. It doesn't make sense. And yet they have, and also it's also suspicious. These wars started after they ran those articles in the LA Times back in 2009. Right after that, it all picked up. It seemed like it was to me. Then it stopped. It stopped in November of 2012. In November 2012, they stopped all the narco here where I am, and there's been hardly any of it since. And that's been a pretty long time. The people forget about it right away. It's a lot of tension when that's going on around you. But we haven't been under it. And so even what happened in Iguala was kind of surprising. Well, Iguala, as you go farther south, those towns down there are more, I'm not talking about them, but this narco thing, they kind of seem like it can be turned on and off somehow. Because we see here that all of a sudden, abruptly, it changed. And I think they brought in something new. So that makes me think that it's not really, strictly speaking, an organic process. It's something more like a military maneuver or something.
Yeah, like the right-wing death squads in El Salvador.
Yeah, a lot like it.
Okay, right, yeah. But now the thing is, back to this thing with the Mexican drug gangs, okay? Now, because they do exist, no?
Well, yeah.
Okay. So then...
I'm not saying... They attribute them... Well, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting your question, but yeah, there's a number of gangs. There are several of them that are named involved in this case. And they're saying that it was the Guerrero Unidos confused them for the Red Gang. And that's what they said, Now... I don't know. Nobody I know can tell one from the other. I certainly can't. I don't know who they are, so I have to take their word for it then, if they're really two gangs.
Now,
go ahead.
Oh, that's interesting, too, right? Because, who even knows if there really are two gangs? There could be one giant gang, and it's all a bunch of crap, right?
Not me. I don't know. I don't have any way of knowing. Nobody I know knows.
Okay, so that's a good question now. So then, and you got these gangs operating there, but now, like, they're not known to the people? Like, they're not hanging out in certain bars?
No,
they don't
that's what I'm saying. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's really separate. The people nobody ever knows these people who are the ones who get, even the ones when they were people getting killed and gunned down. At a certain point, it got and they were started to shoot random people and stuff.
Right.
Okay, but it wasn't so much that. It was more like what it was like here. They'd leave the body with all tortured in a public place, in a really civilized town like we live in. You know what I mean? It's a really nice, beautiful provincial town. And then the people, and it's got a note on it, like written in blood or something, okay? And the note is supposedly the big thing, because then it says, like, oh, now I'm getting you back or something. Like, you're supposed to think they're like infantiles, and they're fighting each other because they hate each other, these gang members, like a cartoon. Anyway, those notes are kind of suspicious because were included in every single crime. In the newspapers that get there earlier to get them, take pictures of them, or they get them from the police or whatever. And those notes were always involved in these crimes, like signing them. It's like dramatization. Like,
sure,
you're going to kill somebody. It's like it's all about dramatizing it. So that was part of the nature of this.
What about the people that were killed, though? Did they have friends and family who came forward and said, oh, this is my friend?
Yeah. Well, it's true, but, it seems like a lot of them, nobody knows them, Like, I'm not claiming, like, I know everybody or anything, but I know a lot of people in the villages, and the common people. And yes, it's true. Yeah, we did know somebody who, my son's best friend had a car wash, and he got his head cut off. And so it does happen to people, okay?
Okay.
And it was in the paper. Open the paper, there it is, right in the back page of the paper. the guy's head cut off.
A little bit more about you. How old are you?
I'm 56.
56. Okay, I'm 52. And now you lived up in the United States for a while.
Yeah, I was born in the United States. My father is Mexican. I was raised in by Catholic monks, or Catholic, what do you call them? Nuns.
Nuns.
Catholic nuns in Pennsylvania. And I received my elementary education all the way through high school in the United States. Then I later returned to my mother's home village, which is it's very near Iguala, where these events occurred. I live in Tasco, and my village is about halfway from here to Iguala. It's about 20 minutes either way. And I've lived here ever since. Modern times about the last 20 years or so. Okay. Now, can you give us a little bit about because you were telling me before when we spoke before about that this was like the birth of the revolution, especially the original Mexican Revolution, and then again in the 70s, the second Mexican Revolution. That these towns where you're coming from, these are historically revolutionary towns. Oh yeah, well, I wonder how I can effectively tell this story, because it is. Particularly the students that were kidnapped and killed. They were not just any students by any means. Okay. They were from a school, a special normal school, that was established in 1935. And it was established with about 30 or 40 of them across Mexico. And these were like teacher schools, but in the very rural areas, and they were devoted from the very beginning to left-wing politics, because, beyond politics, I have to explain that this school was where graduated Genaro Vázquez and Lucio Cabañas. They were the two revolutionary leaders in the 70s in Guerrero. They were both school teachers. They had made, first one and the other, used the teachers union, the regular teachers union, and made associations with other states, and they were promoting peasant political ideology, and it had potential to really be very attractive through the teachers all over the Mexican Republic, and they attacked these people and radicalized them. They were out in the town called Paraíso in the state of Guerrero, down in the mountains above Acapulco. So eventually the one was killed, and the other one, it took a few years to track him down. But they were principled ideologic teachers, okay, that were their movement, of their justice movement, was attacked by the same forces, like the police forces, okay, that they have in these backwoods towns, were used to repress them. So that was a famous historical incident that still goes on to today, because that revolution in the 70s, I don't know all the details of it, but at one point, the governor of Guerrero, Figueroa, was kidnapped and held for ransom by the students. And he was held for ransom, I believe, for several months. And eventually they released a lot of these students from from Cuernavaca, and they put them on a plane to Havana, Cuba. These kids from Guerrero that were protesting. Well, they were. See, then it was to the point where, you were a revolutionary, you were a protester then for real. Yeah. So that was the situation. And eventually they let him go, and he was ransomed out, but then famously nobody ever went to pick up the money or something, so I guess it wasn't. But it is kind of a unique marker in what Guerrero is politically. Okay, now we're coming up to a break. We're going to have a nice little 4-minute break so you can get up and get a drink, go to the bathroom when you have to do. We're here right now with Celestino Mota from Mexico. And how many students were there? 46 students are missing? Do we have an exact number? Yes, I think they're saying there's 46 students. 46 students, these kidnappings in Guerrero.
Mexico with these. Now they're suspecting these massacres. We really don't know. And he's given us the background and the history on this. We're going to be taking a break. We're going to come back and we're going to hear more about this because no one here in the United States is hearing anything about these students being leftists, being activists, or there being any kind of political connection to this. What we're hearing is some mysterious drug gang. And like he says, he didn't even see the drug gang, so we don't even know what's going on with that. So we'll be right back after this break. We're going to have more with Celestino Mota. Thank you, sir. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. We're here tonight with, I'm your host, Ed Opperman, by the way, but we're here with Celestino Mota from Mexico, and he's telling us about these kidnappings that are going on down there in Mexico. Fascinating story. So now, Celestino, in general, okay, because we're just finding out now that these students, not just students that were caught up in a drug war, whatever, in the middle, kidnapped for no reason, that these were leftists. This town has a history of leftist revolutionaries that were actually took haven in Cuba after kidnapping the governor. So give us a little bit more of an idea about what these students were up to, and what do you think happened to them?
Fine, thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Ed. Yes, well, that was back in 1972 when the revolutionaries in Guerrero were suppressed, and it was an armed revolutionary movement in the Sierra Mountains above Acapulco, led by the school teachers. Well, the school they came from, Ayotzinapa, that was established later in 1935 as a rural teacher school by the government, which at that time, Lázaro Cárdenas, was like a left government. It was at the same time as Franklin Roosevelt. And they established these normal schools, and they continued these traditions of resistance and through their school. Since NAFTA, of course, everything has gone to the right and then farther to the right and then more to the right. They've tried to get rid of all these vestiges of the old Lázaro Cárdenas, the social government.
Well, you mentioned NAFTA. Give us from South America. Give us your version, your take on NAFTA, because here in North America, a lot of people, these right-wingers, complain about NAFTA. My God, you have no idea. You do have an idea because you've been up here.
Yeah, well, NAFTA is. If you think the Americans think they've been screwed, the Mexicans were screwed even worse first. This was always a marker for takeover of the financial industry or something, that the impoverishment of the people, because nobody needed to have that NAFTA. It certainly didn't help anybody over here, on the contrary. But since that NAFTA time, I use it as a time marker, things went to the left. Now they try to get rid of these schools that these students are in, okay? And they for example, where these Ayotzinapa students are, the teachers there are signed by the government to be either bitter ideological enemies. So for them to even pass the course that they're taking, they have to put up with these teachers that are their enemies, okay? Because they're trying to close it. Been trying to close that, and I think there's 40 of them all across the country. And they've been trying to close them forever, and they're trying to close them now even more. So these students are very radical, and they're from poor areas. And when people go to that school, they go there to fight politically. That's why they go to that school, because to be part of that tradition, and also because a lot of them are like orphans and stuff. They're coming from the poorest part of the poorest state. Okay, and they're from the really rough people, that are really tough people. So that's these Ayotzinapa students, and so there's 140 of them. And what they did that night, they went out to the highway, the main trunk highway that goes Mexico to Acapulco. It's called the Highway of the Sun. And they go to like a toll booth there, where the cars all have to stop, and there's 140 of them. And they go and they stop it. They stop them and stop the highway, which normal thing here. They're raising money, like they're showing that they're that they're there, and They say they're raising money. They call it Boteando. They go to the bottles. Then they take a bus. This is also normal for them. They're very well known that they go to these bus terminals and take any buses that they want. And the people let them do that because where they're from, they're very popular. Okay, because they're like their political leaders or something, you know, when you're out in the backwoods where they're from, in the southern part of the state. So they grabbed this bus. They took this bus, and I heard this from some composite of their testimony, and they just said to the bus driver, well, it's your turn. And he said, oh, okay, fine. He knew. He said, let me drop off these passengers. So they said, okay, well, let's drop them off. So 10 of these kids out of 140 went into Iguala. And that's a city farther to the north, and it's really out of their zone. It's like 25 minutes, 30 minutes up to the north or something, but it's really out of their zone. They're more from the south and from the hot country in the Sierra. So when they go over there, they run into the police in Iguala, and they didn't know. In the testimony of the students, composite testimony, they said, well, they shot over our heads and they shot below our feet, and they were yelling at us, and we jumped out of our vehicles and we started yelling at them. Well, that's just because these students are very, unless you actually shoot them, you know what I mean? They're really committed. Okay, so that's what they described that scene, that very cinematic scene, really, and that's when they did shoot something. They shot this guy named. One of his kids, I forget his name, they put it up, but they shot him in the jaw or something. I think they killed him. He was killed then. So that incident, ultimately, because as it happens, the president of the town. Now, a president of a municipality is more powerful than it sounds. Like the governor is more powerful than it sounds in the United States because we only have like several levels, and each one's the authority, It's the governor, and then it's the municipal president. Well, anyway, the municipal president and his wife were at a political function, and they were there with the commandante from the military battalion that they have there in town, like the colonel there in charge, and they were all sitting there, a bunch of flowers and stuff. I think that they were saying they were getting ready. She's going to run to be the president, I think, next year, something like that. And the news stories, they keep putting out this version. Now, they were saying the students came in, they disrupted, but apparently that's not true, that it was only just as I described, that some of them went to drop off the passengers from that bus they hijacked, just the passenger bus, because they use these buses to move themselves around. Then they also go into the gas station and they say, hey, give us our gas or something, So anyway, these kids are pretty cool because, they can only do that because they have sufficient support. Not like they have 100%, but the more they're down in their area, where the raw backwoods of Guerrero, the more they're down there, people see them as something very, very positive, and they can have all the buses that they want to take.
But let me ask you this: what happens when they graduate? Do they go on to continue in the revolution, or no? Just
yeah, that's I've been around this. I know a lot of people who were there from that 70s generation. You know what I mean? And now they're grown-up people. And their background is back into that into that guerrilla politics and background. Yeah. And so, I think it's just a continuous thing because really they're continuing a tradition that goes back to at least to the Mexican Revolution of 1910, 1920, because the southern part of the Mexican Revolution was Emiliano Zapata in Morelos. And this was the sugar cane workers that were being enslaved, they're the company town type of deal. So those guys, they don't have any land. They just have to work for free, just because. These Indians, they rose up in the southern part of the Mexican Revolution. And at certain points, they took over all of Morelos. They even started dividing the land up at different times. But the northern guys were always stronger, and they kept coming back, different ones. And so finally, when Zapata, the general, was betrayed and assassinated at Aniquilco Hacienda, that left room for a political arrangement where the South could make its final deal with the North. They had already been fighting for 10 years up there to establish New Mexico. So in a way, Guerrero was very successful because it was the back area of Zapata's revolution, was Guerrero and Oaxaca, these more mountainous states. See, down here, it's more like people are more like Indians. They're more agricultural. The people up in the northern part of the country are more, let's say, like ranchers or something. You know, see what I mean? They're more industrialized. So finally, modern Mexico was forged by the assassination and betrayal of General Zapata, which led to our arrangement, a political arrangement, where many of the goals of the South were realized. In other words, especially the land agrarian legislation, where they wrote all the new land laws, and the labor legislation came out of it. So the people down here, they think that they were successful at that revolution that they had, which they're just fighting down here because the people are very rebellious anyway. You know what I mean? They're like people who just don't want other people to tell them what to do. That's their character. But because of their political situation, they're the exploited ones, they're the weak ones. Of course, that's the way they defend themselves. And here, this movement is it's continuous, really, because I was tracing to you how it made it from 72 right up to the present. In fact, in the newspaper right now, they're accusing this new governor that they just put in there. They're accusing him that he's a guerrilla, and they said they got all of this proof that he was at a guerrilla camp that they bombed down there in Colombia or Venezuela, and that they're trying to accuse him. Now, I can't tell. I don't really follow this stuff. It's probably some kind of neocon thing. They want to freeze the guy or something, or maybe it's true. But anyway, certainly they're saying that the new governor, who is like a rector of the university, well, they brought him in because he has associations with the students. You see what I mean? Because he's like on the people are going to say, this new governor, we're getting rid of the old bad one because we want to solve this, in a humanitarian way.
Yeah, okay, but who's bringing him in? Who's letting him come in?
What they do here is they do one of those deals there, where like political pressure grows, and then everybody says he should go, and then you hear everybody say for 3 days. I mean, the media, they just start saying that he should go on the media, and then he goes. And then the way they actually do it is they go to the House of Deputies and they take away his license. They have a thing called a license that's like his permission to govern or something,
Right.
So, but actually they just make it so he gives it back. You know what I mean? It's like he gives his license back or something like that, and then they say, here's the new one. And they're saying this guy, they named this guy, and he's like university background, but now they're saying he's got a revolution. He used to be that he's got nexus with these guerrillas, and that he was involved. They were saying he was involved with different kind of guerrilla activity, but that's the kind of thing that the right wing guys would accuse. You know what I mean? These people of, because they probably are. I don't know, but I'm just trying to characterize the nature of the kind of these left wing. See, it's like the universities. They're called the autonomous universities. So they're like they can organize in them, and it's hard to like stop them. The people that want to resist. So it's a political battle that's been going on for a long time here in Guerrero, but kind of behind the scenes. The people, they want to always be talking about the criminal activity. Like maybe it's like a smoke screen, so they don't talk about the real political activity. The most significant of which are the following. The teachers union here has been on strike since 2009. They just said they have these mass marches since 7 years ago saying we will not accept these new education laws. This privatization is not acceptable to us. We will never accept it. That's what they say on their banners and their marches. I've got videos of them saying it. 7 years ago, they never changed their tune. They send all their teachers to prison, to federal prison. They have these big violent things all the time, and they say that was the teachers that did that. Put it on the news, so everybody thinks the teachers are just nothing but violent people. They tell everybody in the country that the teachers are getting paid double and they don't do any work. Everything against these teachers. And these teachers have been fighting for 7 years where they went on strike. See, they went on strike because they didn't want to accept this privatization law, which is really like Bush did a similar one with No Child Left Behind. I think it's the same exact one. They did it in Chile too, where they take the public education and they say, "Oh, we're going to improve and give you some tests," and then once you start taking those tests, and they fire all the teachers that they don't want, and they whip it all into shape so the public education doesn't cost any money to the rich people. See, but down here, the teachers they're like kind of alert to that. See, they're ready for that, and they're way ready for it. So they see them coming a mile off, and as soon as they came with us, they started marching. And when they marched, they brought a lot of people, way lots. That's why they're significant, these teachers' unions, and they don't know what to do about them. They tried to say at one time, they were saying, well, we're going to let Guerrero make its own law. But then other states wanted to get in on that, so then they said, no, they can't.
So go ahead. You got the unions. You got the students, right? Everybody's on the right side there, on the left. Okay, right. But now what about, are you able to, I don't even know how it works. Are you able to, elect local officials and local judges? Do you elect your judges and your sheriff and your police?
Let me think here how that works. Here it's like you have elections every couple of years for the municipal president. The people in the villages vote their authorities every year. The commissary, he puts the security people. So they vote for their municipal president every 2 years. And then he's the one who pretty much executive power puts the people in there that he wants.
Right.
That's pretty much how it works here. Okay. And the governor, I think, every 6 years, and then he does the same thing. He puts in his people that he wants after he gets elected.
No, are they good or they're on the wrong side?
Who?
The ones that your people get elected in, and do they still?
Are you talking about governor or the municipal president or who?
Both.
Oh, I don't know. It's hard to say. They just got rid of the one governor. The new one just came in. I don't know. I'm not really an analyst of that because I don't really notice the politics on that level so much. I did become fascinated about these crimes because they took place very close. And, of course, we're interested in that sort of stuff because this affects or could potentially affect us around us. So I started more or less looking into that. Well, I didn't really look into anything yet. All I did was listen to, read a number of reports and think about them. I heard the consolidated testimony of the students, and then I became convinced that it's true. They were just dropping off those passengers, which means it wasn't the CIA. They wouldn't do that. I mean, how could the CIA be involved in that? So there wasn't any kind of like spooky stuff on the first day. It really was that. The students came in, and they're like bravura. What do you call it in English? They're brave.
Bravado.
They're militant. Yeah, they're like, they go around 140 of them, and they go together to make a statement, you see, and they're under a lot of pressure. It's not like they're just walking around like kings. They're under a lot of pressure. The government's way against them, you know what I mean? And they're just the only thing they got in their favor is they're these Indian guys from Guerrero that are from this school. So they go around 140 of them just to show that they're still there. Do you see what I'm saying? They go and they do these things at the caseta, and they say, hey, we're still here. So they go and do these people a favor. They didn't have to leave those passengers back, take them up to Iguala, drop them off, to do them a favor, because they just left them right there. But they did, and they ran into the police. The police shot above them, shot below them, tried to scare them, yell at them, and the kids yelled back at them because they're a bunch of militant guys. So they were from two different worlds, really, in a way. You could really say that. These police in Iguala, they're not attuned to any revolutionaries from down in Yotzinapa.
Oh, I got
you. See what I mean? They're not thinking about those guys. They probably didn't even know who they were until they started saying political slogans or something. Now, they said they thought they were from another drug gang, but it sounds to me, getting into speculation now on this, here's the president of the town, president of the municipality, with his wife at a big gala banquet, and they call up, the police calls up, or his number two man, something, security guy says, now, is he going to tell them the police just shot this kid in the head? He's probably going to say, there's a bunch of students that are causing trouble, right? Wouldn't that be what he'd say first?
Yeah.
So probably that's what happened. And they said, well, look, there's kids up here, these militant kids are up here causing trouble. They're coming in to bust up your bank or something because they already shot this one kid in the head, okay? Well, a whole series of events, because then that could have led to the confusion stuff later on in the night. But a whole lot of weird things happened. It was a big, long story. I'd have to go back and listen to this. If anybody who speaks Spanish, I'll be happy through your program to make available the tape of the person who was explaining all this. That they were attacked by 3 times during the night. They had some guys come and open up with some AK-47s on them. They were stranded in there in Iguala. The military came. And the military guys came and they said, "Oh, you're tough guys, are you? Pull up your pants," and they left them. See what I mean? The military guys came down and they were just all beat up on the street, you know. And the military guys said, "Hey, you guys tough? You know what I mean? That's not we're not picking you up." And then they came back, and at about 1:30 in the morning, there was an incident where there was this shot. 3 guys got out of a white car with AK-47s and shot them from the hip at all these students. And then there were a number of other ones that were killed. I think there were 6 of them that were killed that night, including the first one. Then they took all the rest of them. At some point, they put them in a dump truck, and they took them down to this other town called Cocula, a little farther south. And that's where we never heard of them again. And so, really, to this day, the news is we're waiting to find out. The people are going around like with bated breath or something.
Now, to take out this many 40 of these kids, does that really weaken their little army that they have?
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah, there was 140 of them there in the school, and then the parents of the ones that were still there, they said, "Oh, my kid's not going to school or something." If they could, see what I mean? They pretty much busted them really bad. But I saw some tape, video, YouTube, and they had like different testimony from these students, and they all looked great. They really looked. They all look Indians, you know what I mean? Good looking, young guys, and they're all just saying, "Hey, we don't, I guess we're just gonna fight." That's what he was saying. He was saying, "I guess we're just gonna fight." Everybody's like talking about something else,
Yeah,
but anyway, it impressed me how he said that.
Yeah, well, if you got 150 guys, you're together every day, and 40 guys are gone, the other 100 are.
Yeah, well, right now it's all like it's candles. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right,
it's like candles, and everybody's wailing,
but they did burn down the city building,
terrible.
Though.
Pardon?
They burned down a building.
Yeah, but those are those kind of provocations. They do it everywhere. I think they overthrew some country in Africa yesterday. Nowadays, all you do is you send in some of your pyromaniacs and burn the building and then take over the government. It's just part of the theater, because they did that with the teachers here ad infinitum. See, these teachers are fighting for their, against education reform, in favor of the Mexican, the traditional Mexican public education. And all they can do is say, "Oh, they just burnt this down," and they burnt down half the stuff in Chilpancingo just to blame it on these teachers. Okay. And the teachers weren't doing that. It's real easy to put provocateurs into these organizations.
Sure. Gotcha.
They put these guys, these pyromaniacs, right in there. They put them in anytime they want to. They burn down anything they like. They love to burn things down. These people, they're crazy for burning things.
Okay, we're coming up to the end. We're gonna we do an after show. We can stay for as long as you want tonight, Mr. Mota, and I hope you would, because we can take calls. People can Skype in or they can call in. You can Skype into ed.opperman, OPPERMAN, or you can call in to 702-605-4894. We are going to be doing an after show. I know one guy, a friend of mine, Joshua Brookshire, wants to call in because he actually works with many people from your town there in Guerrero, up here in North Carolina. They work in the restaurant business with him up here.
Yeah, a lot of brothers in North Carolina from down here.
Oh, really? Okay, well, good. He's from North Carolina, and he's the one that told me. He says, "Ed, those 40 kidnappings, that's down in Guerrero where your New World Mexican women are." And that's how I put all this together. By the way, we got our guest tonight from New World Mexican Women, these women who wrote this beautiful book, this coffee table book, where they write these love letters to their men, and then also, too, they teach how to make authentic Mexican jewelry. They're big sponsors of ours, and really supporters of our show. We really thank them very much. So can you stay a little while, Celestino?
Oh, sure, I'm cool.
Thank you, my friend. Okay, so we're going to be dropping Hazy Radio, and I want to thank you, Scott Hare, for helping us out tonight, programming again and producing for us. I know it's been a burden on you, and I apologize for that, but I thank you for all your help and support here. We're going to be staying on cjmarsradio.com live for as long as we can stay alive here. If you want to call in, you can call in at 702-605-4894 if you got questions, you got complaints, you want to sing a song, whatever you want to do. You can Skype in at ed.opperman, and we'll take your calls and your questions and stuff like that. Before we drop off Hazy Radio, is there anything you want to leave some kind of is there anything we can do up here to help you guys down there?
No, nothing I can think of.
Yeah.
No, it's not that kind of situation. You know something? It's a paradise here. It really is. And this is more theater than anything else. Now, having all this terrorism going on all around you and stuff, it does really make you, but this is beautiful. Mexico's a free country. It's not what it seems. It's not what it seems. I can't really explain it very well, but the situation here is far from totally hopeless, like it's portrayed like a failed state type of situation. No, not at all. Not at all. Mexico is very rich culturally, a lot of goodwill. The people have a lot of good intention. The people are still very innocent, surprisingly, amazingly. The people are fundamentally good. If you drive in Mexico in a parachute just anywhere and went up to the first person and said, "Hey, I need a tortilla or something," that person would help you out. Just everybody here, they're all good. Really, fundamentally, they're still good. Seems incredible at this point that they would be. So, anyway.
We got to end right there because Scott, Hazy Radio, we're going to see you next week. I forget who our guest is next week, but we'll let you know. Okay, so Hazy Radio, thank you very much. Thank you, Cindy Jean-Pierre. Hope everything's well with you over there. And we're going to be continuing the after show over on Cindy Jean-Pierre's CJ Mars Radio. And don't forget, you can hear all these shows on the Opera Report YouTube channel and the Spreaker.com and also iHeartRadio.com. Good night, guys.
You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York.